The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the actor that does their, one long take. That is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. I got nothing, man. I mean, this is giving me nothing.
Man, I had no idea what we were getting into with this one.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of been the fun of this run of I don't know what these are at all.
Nope.
Wow, I did not expect this, though. It is a really unique thing.
It is a unique thing. Yep, that's right. No, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
No, I kind of felt like I went up and down where I was like, oh, this is kind of a neat idea. And then I was like, this is going to be hard to maintain for an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, no, I'm kind of into it. Like, it kind of just kept going up and down where I was like, I can't tell if I like this or not, but one thing you can't say you've ever seen anything like it, and nope. That's pretty cool. Like, it looks like I think the actor wrote it, and he didn't direct it, obviously, because he's doing this whole monologue thing.
I mean, he could have done it, right?
Yeah, just like stand the camera up on a tripod and just go to town. Yeah,
right. But no, there's too much camera panning for this to be a one-man show, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a one-man show, but still.
Yeah, so as we said, this is Frankenstein's creature, and like last week you kind of made the joke like, oh, we're just going to be with just the creature this week, and boy, you were not wrong. We're in a one-man show in an abandoned church where basically the portion of Mary Shelley's novel where the monster tells his side of the story, we just have that extended out into a feature film where he is telling us, the viewer, his whole story. Yes,
I mean, including the darker bits that we don't necessarily hear from the creature, that we only hear from Frankenstein's perspective.
Yeah, it definitely expands. I mean, it's faithful, but it's also kind of like, it's giving you a lot more of the internal side of the creature in a way that is, there's some stuff that like is never explicitly said in the novel or in most adaptations.
Right, the implication.
That like is very, very much explicit in this version, which was definitely a choice. Like that was probably I would say that's going to be the most controversial part about this this version. But I mean, like he commits to the bit. He like goes all out, and it's compelling.
Do we want to do a I guess our content warnings here?
Yeah, so because this is just a guy on a stage basically talking at us, there's no visual content warnings per se.
I mean, a little gore.
There is. We do see some intestines that have been like stored in a box. They're not like being pulled out of a person.
They're not fresh.
But other than that, as we've been kind of implying, the creature's interaction, that I will be with you on your wedding night.
Yeah, he usurps the position of the husband on the wedding night.
It's a little more explicit what he does with her in there, and that's definitely the content warning for this, because he's not graphic about it, but he explicitly tells you that that he assaults Elizabeth before he kills her.
Yeah. Also, here's an ADHD warning for you guys. If you have ADHD, hopefully this is your hyper focus. Otherwise, it's going to be a rough time.
Yeah, I definitely did find myself being like, okay, I need to pause this and go get a snack or something and come back, because there's not a lot of actual action on the screen. It can drag a little bit, and you could tell they were worried about that. They every now and then, like what he's talking about will be kind of like superimposed,
right?
Just kind of like ghostly image behind him, like especially when he talks about
the DeLacy cottage and stuff like that.
Yeah, and don't worry, he'll catch your interest by screaming at you every once in a while as well.
Yeah. And because of this being sort of a monologue and not like a lot of actual action, it's going to be kind of weird doing sort of like the plot by bit by bit thing that we usually do here, but we'll kind of do our best and just kind of talk like it's more, if you've read the novel, which I assume most of you have. If
not, go read the novel. Come on.
Yeah. But you've got a pretty good idea of what is going to, happen in this scene or in this film.
Right. So we're going to start off actually with some snow on the tundra. That's the first shot we get.
Yeah, and it's like you see the snow kind of blowing. It almost looks like water, but it's it's land, it's ice. And then we see this sort of decrepit stone church, and we start with the creature. Before he's kind of identified, you just have this kind of figure standing there. He's got a big book, and he's reading from it, and it is the Paradise Lost quote that starts the novel. And then he kind of. He's like, I'm going to tell you my tale. It's a story of angels and devils. And at first, he's like, what's your name? Oh, William. Interesting. Like, he's like talking to you as the audience.
But as William.
Mm-hmm.
I like how he does call the Paradise Lost book original fairy tale during this time.
Yeah. And, he says, like, well, unlike you, I have no name. I have no father.
I have rose almost fully formed, but not formed.
Mm-hmm. But then he like this beginning part's the only part where it seems like he's talking to someone and we're not hearing the response, but he is.
Yes.
Like he hears.
Well, what's your name?
Oh, your last name is Frankenstein. You bear the name of my creator. Like
glorious day, glorious.
Yeah. He says, I'm your brother's bastard son. Good day to you, Uncle William.
Right. Give me a hug or embrace me.
Yeah, and then he kind of like at that point sort of acknowledges that like he's talking to himself. There isn't a William here that we're not seeing. He's sort of reliving the moment when he did meet William and when he killed William.
Right. Well, he's also like, "Oh, old and ugly am I? Well, you're old, but older and uglier by far, Uncle William," and starts throttling his coat.
Yeah, and he says, like now I'm here, but you lay dead in a woodland grave.
Oh man. So, and what I believe he says makes another allusion to Paradise Lost as he's doing so. What connects the angels and the devils, but the fall of the angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say the one thing that I did really like, he jumps around in time a lot.
Oh yes.
In a way that worked for me. Like it kind of fit with his sort of unhinged ranting. It's just like he's remembering all of this stuff and just like processing it.
It's like someone going through their memories and kind of almost having a slight stream of consciousness, but then getting back on track and then kind of lilting off again. It's very interesting. And this right after this is kind of when he gets into the memory of the DeLacy home and how he originally found it.
Yeah. And he talks about like that it all started with fire. Just like Prometheus met his end with fire, but like my sort of journey really began with fire.
And one thing that this movie does that is very interesting visually is that whenever he starts like talking about his very beginnings and like going back in the past, we do see those other versions of himself. So this one looks like a child in like a toga or a wrap throwing leaves into the fire.
Yeah. He kind of talks about that, like he came upon a fire and like, tried to like touch it and burns himself, and he runs into the tall wet grass to try to like, put out the fire.
Right. But then he finds another fire that's like warm and dry and not so hot, but still equally comforting.
Yeah, this is the fire going in the DeLacy home, and he goes into the hovel and is able to get light and warmth from their fire, but be protected. Obviously, again, stuff we've seen.
And here's something that I do find interesting. So, all right, in some cases, we've seen the DeLacy as kind of a poor family, but going back to the book, shouldn't they be anything but? Like, they're on the run, sure, but the Felix is a soldier, The father obviously had some money. Safi absolutely comes from money.
Yeah. Yeah, it is strange. I mean, like, yeah, like, they are on the run, they're exiled, but, you know, it seems like they would have been able to, you know, recover some of their, you know, just possessions, even if not money.
Right.
Like, if their money's lost in a bank somewhere.
I feel like it's a cottage, but it's a very nice cottage. Like,
Yeah.
Like
And,
your
I mean,
rich relatives that live down by the lake. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the cottage that we do see in this that's kind of like superimposed does look kind of nice. I mean, you can't see it very clearly. You know, it's kind of, you know, just a haze in the background. But it's a larger cottage than we usually see, where it's just like a shack often. And, you know, he talks about that, like, this is the first time he's heard music. And he kind of decides to become the kind spirit of the forest for the family.
Right. Well, he's also talking about how there was an issue where he had there was water coming from him, but because of the music. Right?
Yeah. Like him just even learning what crying is. Like, I think those are the moments of this that really, really hit for me. Is just like those tiny moments of the monster figuring out who he is and what it means to be alive and stuff. And like, you know, in Mary's novel, that doesn't really fit with what's going on there, but like that's the, you know, those are the tiny, like, childlike details of him, like, coming to terms with existence,
right?
That really come across well in this monologue version.
Yeah, and because of the music, he's weeping hot tears that become cold, and he's juxtaposing the water with the fire.
Yeah, and I think in the night, he describes going down to the river to have a drink while the family's asleep.
Right, and he's shocked that he remembers how to scoop the water up and drink it. As then it starts raining, water from the sky. Right.
Yeah, just, you know, all these different sensations, and of course, looking in the river gives him his, like, you know, looking at himself in the mirror moment.
You got to have it.
Yeah, and he's so horrified at his own image. And then he immediately jumps from the DeLacy story to the beautiful image that he also remembers seeing Justine.
Of a woman swinging in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his whole description of his encounter with Justine is, like, scary. Like, it feels more, like, malicious. You know, like, even in, like, the Frankenstein novel where, like, he frames her, like, there seems to be, like, you know, there's still some sympathy to what he's doing. He's kind of confused but like here, like, he is really,
it's intentional.
Yeah, he's very gleeful in, like, I did this on purpose. I wanted to hurt this woman because she was more beautiful than me, and I knew how to do it, and I executed my plan perfectly, and it worked. And I got to watch through the window as her trial went on. I got to watch into the courtyard when she was hanged. Like, I saw it all. Right. And, like, I loved every minute of it, basically.
Right. The evil trick he pulled, right?
Mm-hmm. And as you were kind of saying, like, you know, he kind of goes through, you know, modulates, like, you know, he'll be whispering at points, and then he's yelling at you and stuff. And, like, this part, like, he's unhinged. He is, you know, yelling and, like, ranting and running around the stage. And, like, I mean, like, it's intense.
Right. But then after all this discussion about, you know, how he gleefully framed Justine, he just hops on top of the chest and he's like, this isn't working. this isn't how it's working. And then it's almost like he's breaking the fourth wall, but he's also in character. He's like, so let me tell you about real ugliness.
Yeah. This part of, he's like, you're not going to understand this. What I'm getting ready to tell you, you'll never understand.
I don't want you to understand this.
Yeah, don't even try to pretend like you would. If you think you want to pretend and act like you get this, just leave. Like, that's right. You're never gonna understand this. I'm gonna tell it to you, but it's not gonna matter.
I also remember being an angsty teenager.
Yeah, you don't understand me, Mom.
Right? It's not a phase.
And after he, like, tells you, like, leave, he, like, gives you time. He just sits down and at least 15, 20 seconds, maybe longer, that he's just sitting silent on a crate, just waiting for you to leave.
Yeah, like leering creepily at you while you leave. Like, he's like, I'll remember you. I'll get back to you later.
Yeah. And then, like, after he's given you time, he immediately just gets back up and just starts yelling at the camera again, like,
don't pity me.
Yeah. If you feel the urge to pity me, you'd be better off to just kill me. Like, pity is not what I need. It's not going to do me any good.
Don't stifle me with your love. That's a great line too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this whole section is I guess the part that is the least directly pulled from the novel. This is this is more original writing from the writer here, and like it's like he starts talking about like I'm a metaphor for the flaws in humanity. Like he's like, think about
I'm the part of your lover's body that you don't want to look at, that weird little mole and hair that you don't want to touch.
Yeah, like, whatever it is, there's what I'm talking about. There's the part that you would never kiss it. You don't even want to look at it. It may be some hair, it may be a scar, it may be just a part that's even more smooth and it just doesn't fit.
Listen, creature, you don't know me. You don't know my life. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
But yeah, and he's like, you can't get used to that, and you can't get used to me, and you can't, if this is part of your partner and you want to be there, you can't get away from it. You just have to deal with it, and you have to deal with me. And then he starts just yelling presumption at the screen, which is, obviously we've talked a lot about the presumption play at this point. Mm-hmm. Obviously a nod to that. And then he's like, I saw my reflection and I saw that I was ugly, but I think even if I hadn't, I would have just known. Right. I just, even if I had someone who loved me and told me I was beautiful every day, deep down I would know that I am ugly. Yeah. I feel it. It's a feeling inside me. It's like it's just the most pure, basic thing that at the center of my being, I know that I am ugly.
Isn't that called dysmorphia?
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty much. Like, and that I think that. He keeps telling you you're not going to understand him, but like these are the things. Like, we all. Yeah, I mean, even if you don't always feel that you're ugly, I think we all have those moments where you just don't feel right in some way, and we can all relate to that to some degree or other. I mean, there's certainly people who I'm sure can relate more than others, but I think. It's almost like wishful thinking that he would be like, no one can understand how bad things are for me. Like, I'm clearly the lowest of the low. Everyone else has a better life than me. And it's like, that would be nice.
Yeah, it's almost self-pitying in that, you don't want to be comforted when you're in that mode, right? You're like, nope, just let me wallow in a little bit, and then I'll be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he won't be, but still.
Right, yeah. And so from that, he's like, finally, I couldn't live with it anymore, and I begged my maker to create a mate for me.
Right. So my maker's set to making. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, he kind of like is silent for a little bit, and he's like, I waited months while my maker worked on the bride, and then there's just like a melodic, like acoustic guitar melody being played. And he seems to like it's on the soundtrack, but like it seems like he's hearing it as
diegetic.
Well. Yeah, like we're almost like living in his memories, and it's diegetic to his memories. And
because this is when he goes back to that was Felix playing, and then he starts talking about the DeLacy's again.
Yeah, like that Felix was playing, and he loved when the old man played the guitar, but when Felix played, it was different because Felix sang, and when that voice intertwined with the guitar, it rose to a new level.
Right, and then he starts talking about how he was talking about everyone called the old man father this, father that, and even he started calling the old man father.
Yeah, that's the only name he knew, but he sort of started to see him as a father figure, even though they had never spoken.
Maybe even the father, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then he starts going, what is it he says about good? The word good, and then he brings up Paradise Lost. He's like, Milton doesn't talk about good.
Yeah, he like lists all these like really highfalutin words like that Milton uses, and is like, but something as simple and comforting as the word good, I didn't find that in here. I had to hear that from the family. I had to acquire normal language, and through this whole part, he he talks about like learning words from like hearing them speak, but also learning to write from the the books that he had found and everything. And he spells a lot of words out, but it's like he doesn't spell the letters. He spells the sounds, like the
almost
way that like
syllables, right? Except he extends them.
Yeah, like he says like that he collected wood, and he's like duh. And it feels like he's seeing a child who's just learning how sound. You always hear them say like sound it out, and that's kind of what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He goes from that back to the story with the bride being created, but he's swimming in icy water, and he sees a figure in a boat throwing a basket overboard.
Right. And we know what that is, right?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I fished it out, and it was my bride. It was supposed to be my mate.
Yeah, and that he had his creator had created a mate and then abandoned her unmade. Mm-hmm. So at this point, as we kind of mentioned earlier, the creature opens this crate that's been on the stage this whole time, and starts pulling out the parts of his bride.
Right. I like how initially he just pulls out the hands, but he doesn't show you the ends of them. Like he shows you the hands, but not the bones where they would connect to the shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like holding them, like as if this is exactly. But then as you said, he eventually lifts them out, and you see like shoulder sockets, and he lays those down, and then starts pulling out other things, which is
intestines.
There's a lot of intestines, and eventually he even pulls out her head, and you could just kind of see it's just like hair.
It's a mannequin, head. Yeah.
And he just kind of like cradles it. He's like sitting like like with his legs crossed, and he's just like got her in his lap, just like cradling the head.
Like you know this better than me, Anthony, but like is there like a song called From Pieces from Which All Lovers Are Made? Because when he's talking about this, he says fish bones, shells, chicken carcasses, the things from pieces from which all lovers are made.
Yeah,
if not, listen, that's our new band, Pieces from Which Lovers Are Made. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know if this is just more of his, right? Like, it did feel like it was something, but I didn't recognize it.
Okay.
But yeah, like the list is like things that people are made of, and then things that people aren't made of.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's again, it's interesting just the way that he's sort of like. It reminded me of Anything So Utterly Destroyed, the poem that we read months and months ago at this point, about the bride's pieces. Like it felt like it was acknowledging her as a creation that didn't get to be created, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. And so then obviously he mentions that he planned on giving the pieces of meat back over to the ocean. Mm-hmm. But then he saw something on the distance. He's like, "Is that my maker? Is that Frankenstein?"
Yeah. So he starts to approach, and as he gets closer, he realizes, no, that's not Frankenstein. That's Clerval, his best friend.
And the way my eyes work, I can see him clearly, but he can't see me nearly as well, or he wouldn't keep coming.
Yeah, and I happen to be wearing Victor's old cloak, and I know he replaced it with one just like it. So I probably cut a figure similar to Victor, and Clerval may think that I am his friend.
So I just turned around, looked away, basically lured him in. Mm-hmm.
And then he, again, gets really, like, unhinged and gleeful in the way that he describes murdering Clerval.
And he does. He's like, I broke his arm, I threw him on the ground, I choked the life from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then as he's laying there dead, he's like, we're not so different, you and I. We're two bodies deprived of their spirits.
Yeah. And then he remembers, hey, I did promise my maker that I would be with him on his wedding night, but I want to go a little bit further. So there's your warning.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, he says, like, he kind of discovered, like, he realizes that his destiny is, his maker put him together piece by piece. So he's going to unmake his creator piece by piece, taking away all of the things that matter to him, and leaving him, like, alone.
Like only a spirit, right? Whereas the creature has no spirit.
Exactly, yeah. But we go from that back to the DeLacy's.
Yeah, there's that guitar playing again.
Mm-hmm. And this is where he finally is like, I think if I find the right opportunity, I can talk to the old man. I think he'll understand. I think this is my chance to connect with someone.
Right. Then we have a little bit of a comedic bit where he goes in and apparently knocks over or fucks up the father's coffee.
Mm-hmm. Like spills his coffee pot and everything.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, sorry, my bad."
Yeah, and this scene I thought was really, we just went from like him being like a very intentional murderer and like really gleeful about it, and then this scene he's very timid. He keeps saying "forgive me." I mean, like in the course of like 2 or 3 minutes, he says it a dozen times.
Extremely polite.
Yeah, he is someone who is humble before this person that he wants to connect with, and the contrast was really interesting. Like he's playing a completely different character in this moment.
You're right. Very British person.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden he's traumatized by the eyes of the father, right? Mm-hmm. And he's snapped from the delusion of this wonderful cottage. He's like, "Oh no!" And all of a sudden I'm in a slaughterhouse now, and there is no father.
Yeah,
almost like hell, right, where there is no God.
Yeah, the slaughterhouse where his real father, collected the parts to make
no
him.
Father, only Frankenstein.
Yeah. And then he kind of flashes back again to the DeLacy's, but like you kind of skip the time with DeLacy, and he's just like, the son kicked me out. He shoved me out of the house. I struck him. I clawed him. I knocked him down.
Well, I drugged the father. Originally, he was like holding on to the father, and they were screaming at this point now, right? Everyone was screaming.
Yeah, he injured the father in the in the chaos. He fled the wrecked cottage, and then he just says, later, I returned to the cottage. I was all alone, and this is where he discovers
I have
Victor's.
this book in my pocket. Oh,
yeah, I've had it. I knew it was there a long time ago before I could read, and then I just kind of forgot about it. But now I can actually look at it, and as soon as I opened it, I remembered the pictures were horrific, and I didn't want to look at them. But now I see that those pictures are of me.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, "It showed me deep inside myself."
Quite literally.
Yeah. And,
But did we discuss the cottage burning, or do you want to go talk about more about what he was discussing about himself?
Yeah. I think the one other line that I thought was interesting is he says something like, where once, I'd been reading Paradise Lost and I saw Adam and Eve and God, and now I just saw sinews and wires, and it's his creation is much less beautiful than the creations that occur in Paradise Lost.
Right.
But then, at that point, he's full of shame and anger, and he decides to burn the cottage down.
Right, and he laughs as the cottage burned. But he also then remembers, all of a sudden starts remembering the deaths he caused earlier. Right? He starts going through each one in turn, and like gingerly he's setting down the pieces of his own wardrobe that matches up to that person, and he's like stripping himself. Yeah,
that has been like, he has just various rags kind of like draped around his body, but like as you mentioned early on, like he pulls off his outer cloak and like holds it like it's a person when he's like strangling William. But now he strips down. He's already told us, he says, like, he's going through all the people. I've stripped all these people away from Frankenstein. I'm taking revenge for my creation.
Right. I'm rolling back the tide to my creation. I'm going to bring the spirit back to it. The spirit would return to its rightful owner.
Yeah.
Hell of a line.
Yeah, and he describes himself as a piece of malignant tissue dropped from a body that is now coming back to attack that body. Like, right. He's almost a cancer within Victor Frankenstein.
Right. But then all of a sudden, once again, he kind of breaks the fourth wall, and he's like, I don't expect you to understand the ending. I chose to be above you. It's like, oh, okay. Well, fuck you too.
Yeah, I don't need your approval. I'm getting ready to tell you the worst of it, and I don't expect that you're gonna get it or sanction my behavior.
Right, but I'm superior because I made those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I remember my
as
word
we've
being
been
made
alluding
flesh.
to, yeah, he finally gets to describing being with Elizabeth.
Right. Now, my word being made flesh, as I laid with Elizabeth. Okay, and I'm like, but yes, he hops on top of another piece of clothing that is supposed to represent Elizabeth.
Yeah. And he's very clear that like he wanted to hurt her here. So like he looked her in the eyes the whole time. To the point where he felt like he wanted to look away because it was so much, but he knew this was important and he had to keep looking.
Right.
And
it was also important that what he was technically doing to Victor as well.
Yeah. And yeah, once he gets through this part, and like it's not incredibly graphic, but it's explicit enough that it's an unpleasant bit of like it's hard to listen to. And he kind of acknowledges that. Like after he finishes, he stops again, and he just like lets you sit with it for a minute.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you hate me for that."
Yeah. I don't wonder why you hate me. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he just kind of like casually is like, "Oh, and so Victor was grieving this,
But
and
the
his
best
father
part-
grieved."
The best part was his dad was grieving.
Yeah, so he just died as well. I didn't even have to do anything there.
He
It was
died within a week. The creature says with glee.
Yeah. And he was like, it was that one. I didn't even have to do anything, so I kind of it feels
It was a
weird taking
freebie.
credit. Yeah. But at that point, everything was stripped away from Victor, and I knew that it was time for the final chase.
Right. I was focused on a higher plan and a lower plan.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, he in his own mind it's a lofty goal, but he knows deep down it's just low down dirty murder.
Yeah. So he kind of describes, traveling the globe, letting Victor follow him. But he also adds something that I thought was kind of interesting. While he's traveling, he keeps looping back and just checking in to see what's going on with the DeLacy's, to find out what happened with them. And he's like, they were also kind of creations of Frankenstein in the end. Like, their lives got shaken up because they, crossed paths with me, and that's all Victor's fault as well.
Exactly. And he's like, he sat in and listened to what Felix was saying about what happened to the father and everything after that.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, but, where are the cottagers without their cottage? I burned the cottage down, so at this point, they're practically ghosts to me anyway.
Right.
But then he kind of like zeroes in on they've gotten to the Arctic. He's being followed by Victor.
Right. He said he specifically left nourishment out for his creator. So now it's like, this is a game. This was all the creature wanted, was his father's attention.
Yeah. And because he was like, I want to keep him alive. Like this is leading to this final moment at the top of the world.
Right. However, I misjudged his capabilities. Right. He was just a man.
Yeah. And unlike my creator, I do not have control over life and death.
Right. I misjudged my creator. He is the master is dead, and his creation outlived him.
Mm-hmm. And so now we're stuck with a dead man who lives and a live man who has died.
Okay. I mean,
yeah. Like again, the writing in this is what really carries it. Like it's
the performance does too, but yeah, they go hand in hand, and it's amazing that it actually works as well as it does for a literal one-man show.
Yeah. And so at that point, Victor is dead. The creature opens the crate again, but he has it's like a hinge-topped crate. And before he kind of had it so that like, the hinge opened away from him and like to the side for us. But now he faces it so that the lid kind of blocks our view. Like it's sitting up.
It's almost like he put Victor's body in the chest now, and he's addressing Victor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he kind of like steps into the crate, and we just kind of have like, his head and a little bit of his upper body above the lid of the crate. Right.
I plan to rise even higher with my maker, and I will warm myself in my creator's ashes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I must disappear. I must vanish. I must become a speck. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to disappear piece by piece, just like Victor did before me.
Right. One of the cool things he says, he looks directly at the camera and says, I think I was given a soul, but not by my creator. almost like he was given a damned soul right out of the gate.
Yeah, I really liked that. Like the question of whether or not the Frankenstein monster has a soul is kind of like, one of the central things that you kind of keep coming back to with a lot of adaptations. But yeah, here he's like, yes, I was given a soul, and they're very ambitious creatures with souls. Like it makes you want to do something, and it ends just how it began, but in like the best way. So we have the did I request that you create me from the clay? Did I ask you to pull me out of the darkness or whatever? And he says, I did ask you to make me. I did want. I wanted you to promote me from the darkness and make me from the clay. Like, so he's almost kind of like, I know my life was terrible. I know I did all these awful things. People treated me unkindly. I, responded in kind, but it's still worth it. I still am glad that I was alive. And then the camera just like falls over, like crashes to the ground.
It's like This Is Victor or the fire falling over, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like the creature is sort of gone.
Then we get this weird flickering jump scare at the end. Kind of.
Yeah. Which I thought that seemed strange to me. Like I felt like the camera kind of going out, and after that kind of really powerful end monologue, that felt like the right way to end it. But yeah, we see him he climbs out of the crate, and it looks like The Ring.
Yeah.
It's like there's like this jerky thing where he's moving to the camera closely or like really quickly, but it's like cutting, so like he just like is like moving, faster than possible, like just kind of almost teleporting closer and closer to the camera, and then like it just goes to black like as he gets really close to the camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a interesting way to end it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one, it's a strange one. It's not one that you're going to watch with friends. Like it's a movie that kind of like ponder over by yourself. Like it's not a party movie in the least.
This is not one you turn on and just try to like tune out, right?
Yeah. Like if, we all do it, like you're watching a movie and you're kind of fucking around on your phone and kind of like glancing up and stuff. You couldn't do that with this because it is just the dialogue. If you miss any of the dialogue, you kind of miss the point of the movie.
Right.
But I mean, it's not, we're at like 155 movies at this point, and this one is unlike any of the others we've seen. So absolutely. That's pretty compelling to me. Just somebody being able to do something that I've never seen before, especially in, this one niche subject where we have seen a lot. It's pretty impressive.
Right. And someone may be mad at me if I don't mention this, but it's a very interesting choice that Mr. Swanton chose to do an almost Joker-ish makeup job for his monster.
Yeah, like I guess we didn't say this movie's in black and white. It's kind of grainy, like it looks like the classic Universal movies.
Well, it almost kind of looks like the one by what's his name? Not Graham Bell, or was it Graham Bell?
Oh, the Edison one.
Edison, yeah. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's definitely some of that. It also reminded me of like The Man Who Laughs.
Yes.
The makeup that he's wearing. It just has a very classic, like it's because it's like a stage show thing. Like it's really big. Like his lips are huge. Like it's like it's just really thick, exaggerated facial features.
A little Art the Clown thrown in there.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like a German expressionist stage show that somehow got moved into the present day.
Right.
It's a really he doesn't look like any other version of the creature we've seen, but there are points when especially when he undresses himself most of the way and is like holding rags and stuff, that he almost does resemble like those original woodcut drawings in like the first printings of the novel.
Did you notice that he had like the scars along his biceps?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. It took a long time before he was undressed enough that we had any scars. Like it was just this kind of strange face makeup, but they have
the Y incision as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. yeah, those kind of like subtle details really kind of like added a lot to this.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting movie. It's definitely a concept piece, but I think it's worth watching, worth taking a look at for sure.
Yeah. And it seems like this actor, I didn't recognize him, and
a lot of stuff recently, even more so after this.
Yeah, he seems kind of like maybe a new Doug Jones kind of actor,
or a new Javier Botet. Yeah, Botet. Sorry.
Yeah. Like he's if you look at his like credits, it's like he's the magician in the Tarot movie. He's the Ash Man in the stop motion movie from recent years. Like he's in a lot of makeup and things. He's a gaunt, tall figure, and they put him in weird makeup to make him look like monsters.
Right.
And yeah, it seems like that's perfect that he would be like, well, then I'm going to embody the original. Yeah. It seems like this was a sort of a character study for him in a way.
Yeah.
And
I think it's also to show off the guy's a legitimate actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not just a creature actor.
Yeah, because a lot of times it seems like guys that sort of get typecast as being creature actors don't get the recognition.
No.
Like I feel like Doug Jones is a rare exception because he's been around so long and he's done so many really great films that people kind of do recognize him as an actor.
Right, and I think, honestly, you know what? I'm going to give it to Guillermo del Toro. In Hellboy, with Doug Jones got to act.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, oh, he can act as well as be creepy. Awesome. And then he started getting acting roles.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I can see a similar journey for James Swanton here, and I think, this movie is certainly a calling card that he could definitely use to show that he's got it in him to, really act.
Right.
And write. Like this, so he wrote and starred in this, and then, I'm assuming this director is, was a friend of his or something. And they're pretty much the whole crew here. But yeah, it's a tour de force performance that and as you said, there may be some bits in there where they were able to jump cut a little bit that may not have been all one take, but it's certainly very long takes. Like he's doing some really intense, lengthy monologues, getting them right. And, I certainly could not do that, but it's impressive.
And I'll say, if it's not one long take, they hit it really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know there's a lot of times you'll see those, movies where, like, the camera pans across somebody's back or across a wall or something for a second, and they do, like, a jump cut that you don't see. Mm-hmm. But this camera stays away from him for the whole time. It moves a little bit. Maybe when they're doing some of the, like, superimposed stuff, they might have been able to get away with a quick cut if they, like, just nailed the... positioning of the actor and everything, but there's not a lot of room for those. Like if they did any, and I don't know, it could literally be a perfect one take thing for all I know. But either way, it's incredibly impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't give it enough praise. For what it is.
Yeah, it's almost, last week I think we said that Frankenstein's Hungry Dead was not a good movie, but it was a fun movie.
Right.
This is kind of the reverse. It's not a fun movie, but it's a good movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, it's good to have both of those options out there, Yeah,
there's more room in the world for both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, anything else we got to say about it?
I think that's it.
So I think we're sticking more on Tubi, but I think we're going more in the I hope this is going to be fun. It's not going to be good, but it's hopefully going to be fun. We're gonna see a house, Ed and Lorraine Warren house, being the Amityville house. I think. I don't know. Amityville Frankenstein's where we're going next.
Yeah. So last year, I kind of realized. So every movie horror franchise, you have like 12 or 13 Friday the 13th and Halloween's and stuff, but they're like owned by a particular studio that licenses rights and stuff. Amityville's the only one that, because of the way things fell into place, it's just a town. There's no copyright to it. Mm-hmm. Anybody can make an Amityville movie.
Right.
And so there's I think close to 50 Amityville movies. I tried to watch all of them. I think I tapped out in the 20s. There were some,
Yeah.
there were some that were so hard to find that I had to give up on them.
Some made-for-TV movies and
yeah. There was one that was like I think was like a softcore porn movie called Amityville Vibrator.
Makes
I was never
sense.
able to find that one. I'm very curious, but I never found it. But
Yeah.
I did not know until just when we started looking on Tubi recently that there was an Amityville Frankenstein. I
Okay.
have no idea how those go together.
Well, here's the thing. There's another layer to this bullshit. And
Okay.
I'm going to tell you this right now. This is actually based on a video game, Anthony.
Okay.
This is based on a video game called Fiendish Thieves. Nothing to do with Amityville.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be something. It'll be something.
All right. Well, I am looking forward to it. Yeah, like you said, there's no way this is a good movie, but hopefully it will be a fun movie.
Hopefully. All right, folks. Anything else we got to say?
I think that's it.
All right, where can they find us, Anthony?
Yeah, so you can find us on all the socials at the Frankencast, including TikTok. We're still kind of easing into TikTok, but we got a couple videos up. Yeah, so find us there. We'd love to hear your thoughts about our fresh attempts there.
Yep.
To do the video pivot as you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah. Eventually, right.
But you can also find us over on YouTube. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com, and of course patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we've got well over 100 bonus episodes that you can dig into, including the creature series that keeps getting crazier and crazier as we go through it. We still, we're about halfway through. I have no idea where it's going, and we're having a blast over there with that. So you should definitely join us for that, and plenty of other things over there as well.
We have a very interesting discussion of the Frankencastle run of The Punisher, if you're into that.
Yeah, that was fun, and we've done a lot of monster stuff over there. So if you like us, we talked about a couple of the movies here, but if you enjoyed those, tons and tons of monsters content over there as well.
Yeah, have we discussed the adult monster? Here come the monsters. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. If you're into that kind of thing. All right. Anything else we got to say?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. And to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.